Welcome everyone to my Watch Dogs Legion taxi tour of London. So just like my Getaway taxi tour of London, we're going to take a drive around the city, see the sights, and I'll talk a little bit about what we can see along the way. We won't be following the exact same route as in the Getaway because in Watch Dogs they've fictionalised some bits of the city, but we're going to take in all the important landmarks. And we should also be able to see how the city has changed. We won't be listening to the in-game radio as we drive around because there's a lot of copyrighted music, etc, but I do recommend, if you have the game, definitely put the radio on, not just for the music but also for a lot of the chat shows and the talk shows on the other stations. So we're on auto drive mode here just so I can move the camera around and show you guys some of the sights. After each landmark we'll probably stop and set the next waypoint, and then we'll carry on. So on our left here we've got the two arches of Euston station. The area itself is pretty accurate. They've just obviously changed the interior of the station to more of a tube station. As we travel along the Euston Road here, this is all fairly true to life. On the left we've got the British Library, which is in the game, it's exterior only, but we're coming up on the St Pancras Hotel here. Again, another true to life feature, and it's right next to King's Cross St Pancras train and tube station as well. And as we cross these traffic lights, on the left there is St Pancras station, and we can see King's Cross just there in the background. Again, all completely true to life. So we're going to continue from here and we're going to go down to the city, sort of really central London where all the skyscrapers are, and we'll take a look at those. It would be nice in Watch Dogs if you could set multiple waypoints and just have the car drive a route, but it is quite nice watching the self-driving car do its thing. It's clearly based on the AI traffic patterns, and I think along this route we'll probably see some fairly odd stuff as well. We'll see it do some fairly interesting things. I've only had it drive into stuff a few times now, but it does happen. Just like real life, just like real self-driving cars, they're not 100% reliable. I'm glad to finally be able to bring this Watch Dogs Legion London tour to you. I know that thousands of people enjoyed my Getaway London tour, so I'm hoping you'll find this one just as entertaining and just as interesting to take a look at the city. Maybe you live here or you live somewhere far away and you're just curious, but I'm enjoying showing it to you and I do hope you enjoy watching it. So our taxi will pull over here and we'll set the next waypoint, which will take us through Old Street and then into the heart of what you would call the Skyscraper district. So like I said, even though there are a few splices in the video, this was all one continuous trip. The splices are where I've gone into the menu, selected the next waypoint and come back out. Old Street is kind of known as the Silicon Valley of the UK. They call it the Silicon Roundabout. It's where a lot of startups and trendy tech companies are based. I don't know the area too well beyond the roundabout itself, but a few of the features you'll see here, like these bridges that we're going to see in the background, are definitely true to life. And this super trendy area is right on the outskirts of sort of the stuffy old financial districts with their tall buildings. Now just coming up in the distance here we can see the back of one of the famous skyscrapers in London. It's called the Walkie Talkie, and it's a fairly recent glass tower which wasn't in the Getaway because it's too recent, but it's sort of a super smooth futuristic looking building right there with a sky garden on top. So at the top I think there's a bar, obviously trees and plants. I'm told it's quite nice, but I've never been up there. So as we turn this corner here, on the left is what's called the Cheese Grater, or the Leadenhall building. That is a big, sort of very sharp new construction. And we're just passing here the Lloyd's building, which belongs to the Lloyd's of London Insurance Company and has been a feature of the city for many years. So just behind our taxi we can see the Leadenhall building there stretching into the sky. What we didn't see much of was the Gherkin, or I think it's St Mary Axe. So we're going to loop round and we're going to take a closer look at that building too.
Auto drive now disabled.
What can be seen directly in front of us is the Tower of London. I really don't know if geographically it's actually that close, like it is on a map, but I've never seen that view before, where you step out of sort of the skyscrapers and you can see the tower. Someone who's more familiar with the area might be able to let me know more about that.
You have reached your destination. Auto drive now enabled.
The auto drive navigation feature is also far from perfect. If it can't find a path to your destination, it does tend to kind of just drive straight ahead aimlessly. So I'd imagine throughout the course of this video you'll see a few manual corrections where I've adjusted our route to make sure we're heading towards the landmarks that we want to see.
Auto drive now disabled.
The auto drive also obeys the one-way systems, so even though you might want to take a certain route, you'll probably find yourself taking a slightly longer way round as it follows the correct one-way systems of the City of London. And once again, another nice view there of the walkie-talkie and the Leadenhall building as we make our way around to the Gherkin. And here it comes, it's just poking out the side of the Leadenhall building. There we go. Of course it's known as the Gherkin because of its shape. It's a very famous building in central London, and there again is a restaurant at the top which does some lovely food, and I think that's literally the only time I've been there. We're doing this tour at night because the city is all nicely lit up, but towards the end of it I believe we're going to see some sunrise as well.
You have reached your destination. Auto drive now enabled.
Our next destination on our trip, we're going to cross the River Thames on Tower Bridge, and we're going to go and take a look at the Shard, which used to be at least Europe's tallest skyscraper. I don't know if it still is or if it's just one of the tallest skyscrapers. But it's a super impressive building, and it's done a lot to regenerate the area that it's in as well. And of course there's a very nice restaurant near the top.
You have reached your destination.
So this is one of those auto drive fail moments where it just won't follow the route you want it to, so we'll have to turn it around ourselves.
Auto drive now enabled.
So with our route set and corrected, we're on our way towards Tower Bridge and the Shard. Some of the sites we're going to take in on this drive are Buckingham Palace, Regent Street and Oxford Street, Piccadilly Circus, Westminster, the London IMAX. The Tower, of course, we'll drive past, so all of the famous London sites that you want to see. In addition to the taxi tour, I'm also going to do a couple of walk-in tours of locations that you can't really get to by car, but you'll really want to see on foot because they do match their real-life counterparts. But that is going to be in another video, and these guys just crossed the road, I guess. Luckily the self-driving car can deal with that kind of thing. Now, as I was saying about some of the city being fictionalized, although the city is on the whole very accurate indeed, certain blocks and certain places they've replaced to suit the vibe of the game, because it is kind of a near future London, and also to provide a lot of locations for missions and that kind of thing, I would guess. Although I haven't played too much of the game yet, you can see I'm literally on the first mission. I've just been having so much fun driving around the city. So we've got the Tower of London on our right there, and of course you can see those skyscrapers, the walkie-talkie, the Leadenhall building, etc. in the background. And this is Tower Bridge itself. So cross Tower Bridge, and we can already see our destination, the Shard, up ahead there. The city is actual size as well, so central London is a very small city. I'm impressed by how much they've actually managed to include. So the city reaches all the way out to Battersea and the redeveloped power station, which we're going to take a look at in our walking tour, because there's far more to see on foot there. And to the west, I believe it stretches out to Brixton, which I'm not that interested in. We're just going to stick to Central for this taxi tour here. I'm quite thankful for Autodrive because Central seems ridiculously fiddly to drive around. There's lots of weird bridges and one-way systems, and you can't necessarily get where you want to go. So we can see the Shard, but we've got a little bit of driving to do before we get there because of the way the roads are laid out. So I think we're going a little bit deeper here into sort of the London Bridge and the Southwark area. But as we go towards, I think it's Borough here, we'll be able to see a little bit more of the Shard. And as we pull up here, I'm just going to rotate the camera and you'll see just how close we are to the Shard. It's going to be just the other side of the railway behind us here, because the Shard is attached to London Bridge Station.
Run a search. Make it quick.
Autodrive now disabled.
Alrighty, it's on to our next destination, which is the Waterloo area. So that's on the South Bank and contains the London Eye, the IMAX and Waterloo station itself. So we're going to go to the South Bank because it's fairly nearby, and then that will allow us to cross the bridge back north of the river and see some more landmarks in sort of more central London. Whoa, easy there. There we go. Self-driving cars still pick the wrong lane even in whenever this game is set. So of course this game contains a lot of sort of fictional window dressing, so the giant neon signs above the Shard and the little protest camps and all that kind of stuff. It all just adds to the feel of the game, but thankfully if you are just playing this to drive around virtual London, like I say, they haven't really replaced too much with their fictional stuff, apart from the odd small change, so it doesn't detract from the overall accuracy of the city. Because our route takes us a little bit further away from some of the touristy stuff here, there's a few less landmarks to see for the next 20-30 seconds or so. I don't know what that building was on the right. I don't know if that's fictional or not. It looked pretty nice though. This area is sort of well outside of my expertise, which is why I'm glad the computer is driving for me, but we'll soon be back in far more familiar territory in literally a few hundred meters here. Right at the end of this road we'll soon be able to see the London Eye again, and then we'll be right back in that sort of Waterloo South Bank area. I only have this game on the Ubisoft subscription service, and I didn't really plan to keep it longer than, sort of the time it took to have a drive around and do this video. But the few bits of gameplay I have done, I've really enjoyed. So maybe I'll keep it around for a little bit longer, whether that's through subscription or buying the game or whatever. But I'm also glad I've got it on PC, not only because it makes it easy to capture, but also we get that nice ray tracing as well. Now here we are at the back of County Hall, and the London Eye is quite literally the other side of that. We're going to pull up here and take a closer look.
Autodrive now disabled. Autodrive now enabled.
Right, let's spread out and look.
Another super awkward U-turn there to get the Autodrive back on track in these stupid one-way systems they have around this part of town. You can't get too close to the Eye by vehicle, but we are literally going to get as close as we can to it. but I will cover that area in my walking tour as well. So there it is, just through there, and we are now going to continue on to the IMAX, which is just on this roundabout ahead of us. It's another real world landmark that does literally look like this, apart from the massive hologram. So there is usually a nice lit up car advert in that main window there, and it is of course the biggest or the best IMAX cinema in the UK. I remember seeing Titanic at that cinema, literally the biggest screen I've ever seen, and it really is a great experience. If you're near London, in London, staying here, whatever, maybe try and take in a film. So we're going to cross the bridge here, taking some views as we drive across it, and that will take us towards Westminster.
Auto drive now disabled.
And what a beautiful view there, back across the bridge. So we've got the railway bridge, we've got the London Eye, got Westminster, and over the other side we can see towards the Oxo Tower there on the right, and the Shard in the background, and the city on the left, which we just drove through. Having not been able to visit or work in London for about a year now, it's super cool to be able to at least visit in Watch Dogs Legion. Hopefully it won't be too long before we're all back there either. Somerset House on the right hand side here, I believe it used to belong to the UK Tax Authority, but now it's just like an exhibition space. I remember going to a Stanley Kubrick exhibit there. So the turn coming up ahead will take us to the north bank of the river, which doesn't really have a name, and that will take us onwards to Westminster, where we can check out Big Ben, Houses of Parliament, and all of that good stuff. It's really close by, and of course on the way we get another spectacular view across to the South Bank and the London Eye. The in-game radio stations here, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, are brilliant. So the music varies everything from classic British tracks like Football's Coming Home to some stuff by, I think it's 5x9 and KSI, which really does suit that sort of London vibe. And if you're British, you'll find the talk show stations very funny because a lot of it is very relatable and quite close to home. So here we are, Westminster coming up ahead. We've got Big Ben right there. We're going to take a right turn which will take us as close as we can get by vehicle, so we should get quite a decent view of the Houses of Parliament and the rest of Westminster here. And as we make this right turn, on our right hand side we've also got Westminster Tube Station, which sits on the Jubilee line and is one of the most impressive stations on the entire network.
Auto drive now disabled.
Our next destination, as we leave Westminster and just take a lovely look at it there over our shoulder, is Buckingham Palace and the Royal Parks. So we're going to head up a little bit further north towards sort of the northwest tip of central London, and from there on we can head east and see even more landmarks. I'll try and show you as much of Westminster as I can here as we sort of head around. I guess it's a roundabout, but it's a roundabout with a green square in the middle. Camera movement might get a little bit lively here, but on our right coming up will be Westminster Abbey, just off our shoulder here. So this is where a lot of sort of big state events, I think royal weddings and funerals and all that stuff, tend to take place as well. I love the attention to detail on the character. So when the auto drive is on, he's literally just sitting there texting, and when you disable it, you can see him sort of take the wheel. It's very neat touch. I don't know if these self-driving cars in this game are good enough to be sat there looking at your phone, man. Given what I've seen, I don't know. Should be required to keep your hands on the wheel here, I reckon. So as we make a right turn at the end of the road, out of nowhere you will see Buckingham Palace. It's really well modelled, and yeah, believe it or not, Buckingham Palace actually does sit on a massive roundabout. We're going to drive past and go a little bit further down the road, but eventually we will loop back on ourselves and we will drive up the Mall, which is sort of a main sort of parade roadway just in front of the palace. To our left there, that's literally all the fencing for Buckingham Palace, and to the right is one of the royal parks. So we're just going to stop here and set up the next section of our route, which will take us towards, oh my god, self-driving cars, which will take us towards Trafalgar Square. The landmark we can see just ahead of us here is the Wellington Arch.
Auto drive now disabled. Auto drive now enabled.
It is a bit of a trek from here to Trafalgar Square, but on our way we're also going to take in another couple of quite nice places in the city. So we're going to go past Green Park, which again is one of the nicer, greener parts of town. This area is also incredibly popular with tourists. Of course, all the day trippers want to see the parks and Buckingham Palace, etc, etc. But they never want to see sort of the more interesting parts of town, which we're going to cover in the walking tours. So they never want to see the Barbican, and they never want to see sort of redeveloped Battersea, which are both really, really nice places. So this is Green Park Tube Station, just here on our right hand side. A very, very busy station on the Victoria line. If you ever think about getting a tube from here, you should probably just call an Uber or something like that instead. It will save you a lot of pain. I also found this part of town to be a bit of a black hole when it comes to sort of food or creative food. It's just one Pret and Eat store after another. There's nothing really unique, but it does serve that tourist market, and you know, I guess you can always get a sandwich. This is one of the areas I do know fairly well, as I worked around Hyde Park Corner for about 6 months, 5 years ago. It looks like there's something going on behind us here, so let's check out. Oh, I say, okay. Well, that guy's in a little bit of a hurry. I don't know where he's going, but hey, lively, lively place. Luckily, whatever that was didn't hold up the traffic too much, and we continue through the side streets of London to Trafalgar Square. The thing I will say is that traffic in this game tends to flow a lot better than it does in the Getaway. It doesn't necessarily feel like the volumes are lighter. Let's just troll these guys a bit while we're sat at the light. Someone standing in the middle of the road on their phone is probably a more common sight than you would think in this city. So, as I was saying, it doesn't feel like the traffic volumes are lighter than in Getaway, but the traffic definitely flows a lot better, so there's less irritating traffic jams, even on the self-driving mode, where it obeys all the red lights and the stop signs, the one-way systems. So here we are, Trafalgar Square. Nelson's Column in the middle there. We have the National Gallery there on the square itself. And again, Trafalgar Square has turned into something of a roundabout. So we're going to head through Admiralty Arch and down the Mall here. So this is, like I said, the big sort of parade route up to Buckingham Palace. It's something that I covered in the Getaway. It's a super iconic part of town, so I thought I'd show it to you guys here as well. So sticking with the theme of state buildings and iconic buildings, after we've got to the top of the Mall, we're going to loop round and we're going to head towards Downing Street, or we're going to drive along the road that goes next to Downing Street, because you can't get down it in real life or in this game without being jumped upon by lots of men in black.
You have reached your destination.
And another nice self-driving car accident there. Let's set up this route.
Auto drive now enabled.
Taking this route also means we get an... Wow, the AI is doing well today. There's something ironic about the guy being run over by an ambulance. Let's liven things up even more while we're sat at these traffic lights. It's okay guys, ambulance is on its way. Oh, jeez. God, why? I think now is a great time to leave and take in some more sights, don't you? Our route here will actually take us past Westminster again, which will be quite nice because you'll get to have a clearer look at Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, because when we drove past it last time we were kind of going round a roundabout, the camera was everywhere. Once we've driven by Westminster and Downing Street, we will head up to the British Museum. It's quite nice to look at. And then we'll head up to Euston again, because that will loop us round towards Regent Street, Oxford Street and Piccadilly Circus. So another brief look here at Houses of Parliament and Westminster as we make a left turn towards Downing Street. So we're now turning into what's known as Whitehall, so this is sort of a main road that runs alongside Downing Street. On the right there we've just passed the Cenotaph, which is a war memorial, and on our left here with all the gates and the protests, that is the entrance to Downing Street. So on our left is Horse Guards Parade. So this was used as the volleyball site for the 2012 Olympics, and it's also where, well, the Horse Guards Parade. So you can see here as we're heading back towards Trafalgar Square how close everything in central London is and how linked together it all is, especially in this part of town.
Auto drive now disabled.
And it is on to our next stop, the British Museum, as we head sort of back up north and back towards Euston. And as we go round the roundabout here, we can get a clearer view of some of the plinths in Trafalgar Square and Nelson's Column right there. I'm quite impressed here by how the AI is managing to sort of navigate around this roundabout with its multiple lanes. Yeah, it's in the wrong lane half the time, but it does traverse the route successfully. I'm not quite sure why the window on my taxi is smashed. Maybe I did that when I was borrowing it a little bit earlier on. On our way to the British Museum, we're going to pass through some of the West End and some of the sort of casinos and theatres and cinemas that make up that area. So think of that area as like Broadway in New York. It's where all the big musicals and theatre productions are staged. So on the left, I believe, is the Hippodrome Casino. They have a fairly decent steakhouse up there, or at least they used to a few years ago. And as we rotate the camera around, you'll see we have arrived at the British Museum. It's quite well known in real life for its ancient Egypt exhibitions, so this is an appropriate theme right here. So that is the majority of our tour done, but like I say, we're going to loop up to Euston, which we saw a little bit earlier, and that will enable us to come back round and see Regent Street, Oxford Street, sort of the main tourist / shopping areas in central London, and of course Piccadilly Circus, which is nearby. I hope you've enjoyed the tour so far. I know it's a little bit longer than the Getaway one, but hopefully I've shown more of the city and how it all fits together as well, so you guys can get a picture of London as it stands. So here we are, in the Euston area right now, and it is time for us to turn around and go and see some shops. As nice as it's been seeing the city at night all lit up, it's almost sunrise. So as we set off towards the shopping streets, the sun should rise and we should be able to see a little bit more of the city in the daytime.
Track him down. Drone, begin a search.
Most of the walking tours I'm going to do will be during the day, so you can get a really good detailed look at some of those areas. I wonder, can we get this bike out of the way? Yes we can, but it really wasn't worth it just to sit at a red light.
Auto drive now enabled.
Oh why? Why? And then just wait there. Okay, cool. Whatever car, whatever. At least it's obeying the no waiting in the yellow box junction rule, so that's something. Anyway, off we go down the side streets of Camden towards Oxford and Regent Street. And that guy there on the back of a taxi just rubbing his head is pretty much how I feel about the self-driving cars in this game. Sometimes really clever, but sometimes incredibly stupid, just like in real life. So we're now back on the Euston Road heading west. That police building almost certainly isn't there in real life and certainly doesn't look like that. So we're going to go under the junction here, and the square that's coming up is a real life landmark. It's home to, I think, a few bank headquarters and that kind of thing. And on the left a little bit further up here we'll also see Warren Street Tube Station, which again is a real life station. So here's the square. I believe in real life the tallest building is actually residential. And we also have sunrise, so for the remainder of our tour there's not a lot left, but you should be able to see the city nicely lit up during the day. The area we're heading into now is roughly the Marylebone area. So there's lots of fancy old buildings and there's a few sort of private clinics in this area further down those side roads. So this crescent is another real life landmark in London. On our way to Oxford Street we're actually also going to see what the game has called, I think, the GBG headquarters, the Broadcasting Corporation. In real life that is the home of the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. And yes, the BBC are just as keen on propaganda as their in-game counterparts. And here we are, so this is the GBG or BBC building. And the All Souls Church is also just there on our right. Yep, pedestrian behaviour, pretty realistic.
Auto drive now disabled.
So just to satisfy the one-way system, we are just going to loop here and we'll find ourselves passing the GBG building again. But it's not a proper taxi tour unless it takes you around the houses a few times, right? You wait until you see the fare for this trip and you'll be wishing you got an Uber perhaps instead. Maybe I should have done that this time round, because the Getaway was a couple of years ago now. Perhaps this should have been an Uber tour of London to fit in with the modern age. So here's a pro tip if you're visiting London and planning on going shopping on Oxford or Regent Street. You're probably better off getting the train to Stratford or White City and going to the Westfield malls instead. Much bigger variety of shops. Still busy, but less crowded than Oxford Street. You can actually shop there, and I think the prices are perhaps a little bit less inflated as well. It's a bit like buying M&Ms from the M&M store in Leicester Square. It's something best avoided if there's a Tesco's nearby. So here we are, Oxford/Regent Street on the way to Piccadilly Circus. I love what they've done here. This is where in real life they have all the Christmas lights and nice displays up at the festive time of year, and they've done a great job here of decorating it
against humans is permitted.
Most of the stores down here are designer. I think probably Selfridges and stuff is around this area too. And as we come around this corner, we can see the big old video screens of Piccadilly Circus, which in real life are usually showing an ad for Coca-Cola. I'd imagine right now they're showing something a little different, but the Coca-Cola ads will return soon. Building on the right is the Trocadero, which used to be like a Sega amusement park. I think now it probably hosts Body Worlds or something like that. And so concludes our London taxi tour. So the next step is a walking tour, and we're going to start that at Barbican in a different video. But to round off this video, we're going to drive to the starting point for that tour.
Auto drive now disabled.
I'm going to talk a lot about the Barbican in the walking tour itself, and also in that video it's going to cover Battersea and the South Bank, as well as the area around City Hall. But for now, no more commentary, and we're just going to enjoy the drive to the Barbican, ready for the start of our walking tour video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it useful, and pick me up on anything I got wrong in the comments below. Take care. Oh, I'll leave you with a classical version of one of the greatest Great British songs on the Watch Dogs soundtrack.
This is an outlook check.
Auto drive now disabled.